Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. We're so happy to have you guys back, and to our new subscribers we say a big thank you to you. This tutorial is a Victorian corset tutorial. This is one of the simplest methods you would come across today. So I started by taking my starting point, which is the shoulder line, and I took 8.5. My shoulder measurement is 16 divided by 2, we have 8. And then I added 0.5 for my sewing allowance, and I came down by 0.5 to give me my shoulder slant as always. And then I went ahead and took my normal bodice measurement, which is the bust line, 9 for our bust line, 13 for my under bust, 16 for my half length. If you're making a dress, you stop at that half length, but this is a full top length, and I took 22 for the full length. And then I went ahead and rule out straight lines on each of those points to mark them out. And the next thing we'll do is to take our neck measurement. I went in by 3 and came down by 3. This is just basic neck measurements for the yoke, for those that would be needing the yoke part of this. We would need it. So this is our neck measurement: 3 in and 3 out, 3 down, 3 in. So the next we'll be doing now is I am writing out my bust, under bust, half length and full length on each line to know what each line is meant for. And I also took a new measurement from my shoulder slant, which is 8, to mark out my chest line. That's what I'm doing here. I came down by 8 inches, and I also make a straight rule on that 8 inches to indicate our chest line. The first line we took was bust line, so this is the chest line. This is me making sure it's 8 on both sides to avoid any slanty line. So after taking that 8 for our chest line, the next thing we'll do is to divide our armhole length we have there by 2, so that you will get where the curve of your armhole will be. On the middle where you divided it by 2, you make a mark and come in by half an inch, so that when you're slanting, you follow the half an inch. But we'll come back to that slant later. The next thing we'll do now is to take our bust pan measurements, which we also call nipple to nipple measurements. Mine is 8, so I'll be taking 4 on all the lines down, from the bust line to the under bust line to the half length to the full length, and even on the chest line I'm taking 4 inches. So after taking the 4 inches straight down, the next thing we'll do is to mark a straight line on those 4 inches. A lot of us must have been familiar with this by now. This is how we also draft our normal bustier pattern drafting. But the next thing I'll be doing here for this corset is to go up by 1 inch. This is to mark out a new chest line for me. I want it to be very high in the chest. I don't want the cleavage revealing type of Victoria corset. So that's why I'm going up again by 1 inch. This is not necessary if you like the low necked Victorian corset or corset, whichever corset. I just want mine to go a little bit higher. That's why I marked out this new chest line for myself. So I also extended this 4 inches to our new line that we just made. So what we'll do now is to mark out 1 inch on our left, 1 inch on our right, on both sides of our chest line. 1 inch on your left, 1 inch on your right on the under bust line. Then 1 inch on your left, 1 inch on your right on the half length. While on the full length, you go 0.5 left, 0.5 right. This is for our darts. As you see me doing, I used my curve rule to rule out the 1 inch I took left and right of our chest line. This is what I'm doing here. Take note. And then on the under bust, I also came out 1 inch left and right. So I'm connecting them to the bust line, as you see me doing. The first one came from the chest line. The second one came from under bust. They are both connected on the meeting point is on the bust line. while the dart I took on the half length, 1 inch left, 1 inch right, went straight down to meet the 0.5 I took on our full length. I guess we already know how to take dart measurements, but if not, just replay this part and understand what I did there. So the next thing we'll be doing now is to take our body measurement, starting with the bust measurement. I'm using bust 38. 38 divided by 4, we have 9.5, and I marked 11.5 because I added 2 inches seam allowance. On the waistline, which is our half length, we're going to be very careful here because we're going to add 1.5 allowance extra for an extra dart that is coming. Victorian Corset has as many darts as possible. So I took my waist measurement is 31. I have minus 1 inches. Remember to do that to give you that snatch waist. I'm now using 30 instead of 31. 30 divided by 4 gave me 7.5, plus these 2 inches in the middle for our darts, that's 9.5, plus 1.5 for our dart that is coming, the other dart. So I marked 11 on my waistline, and on the full length line, that's why I took my hip measurement. My hip is 44 divided by 4, that gives us 11, plus the 1 inch we took for our darts, and then another 1 inch for sewing allowance, so I took 13. So the next thing we're going to do is to go back to that armhole and do the curve on the armhole. Remember, I divided it by 2, marked the middle points. At the middle point, I came in by 0.5, and that gave me that curve. Now I'm connecting this our chest line dart to the armhole line, as you see me doing with my curve rule. Remember I went left and right 1 inch on both sides. I connected the one on the right to the armhole line, and I connected the one on the left to the chest line down. That will give me that V neck in front. The other one went to the armhole line, and this one came to the V front. Next, I'm doing a straight line on those body measurements we took earlier. Where we marked our body measurements, I just went down straight. So the next thing we'll do now is to draft out our new dart. Remember, on our waistline, we added extra 1.5 inch because I told you another dart is coming. This is Victorian Corset. You can have many darts as possible. So I divided my bust. On that bust line, I divided what I have in between by 2, and I marked a straight line down to the armhole line. See how straight it's connected to the armhole line? So what I'll do now is to come out by 0.5 on the left, 0.5 on the right. Remember, we kept that 1.5 inch allowance aside for this dart. So now I'm coming out by 1.5 on the left, 1.5 on the right. On the bust line, and on the waist line, the half length line, the same thing, 1.5 left, 1.5 right. 0.5, sorry, 0.5 left, 0.5 right. So as you see me taking the dart straight down to the armhole line, I also connected it down to the waistline. Just watch. After connecting it to that half length line, which is our waistline, we'll have to now slant it to the full length line. If you're stopping at the half length, you're supposed to slant it on this half length, but this is a full top, so I'm now slanting it straight down to our full length of the top. After successfully drafting out this new darts, remember it was 1.5 inches we kept. We have used 1. 0.5 plus 0.5 is 1. The remaining 5, the remaining half will be taken on this front line. This is our middle, remember. So on the half length, come in by 0.5 and slant it towards that V curve on the neck you made. That's what I just did. If you don't understand, kindly watch it again. I came in on the half length by 0.5. The remaining 0.5 from our 1.5, we have used 1 on the side darts. Here, I just came in by 0.5, slanted it upwards towards the V line, slanted it downwards towards the full length. And then I went ahead and highlighted each panel, so you know the first one is the center front number 1, the second one is our middle, while the third number 3 is our side front. So now what I'm taking is my sewing allowance. If you notice, I did not take a lot of sewing allowance. I'm just adding excess sewing allowance to avoid problems, because by the time we take in all these plenty darts we took, when I was measuring, taking the body measurement earlier, I just added 1 inch and 1.5 inch for sewing allowance, and I felt like it might not be enough, so I drafted out 1 inch on the side and 1 inch on the length downwards to mark out a new sewing allowance, and I shaded that part for you to know that it's a sewing allowance. The next thing I'm doing now is marking out a basque. It's not necessary, I don't need it, I'm just putting it here in case you want to basque your top. I just went up. You can go up as high as your half length to bring your basque down to the front. So I just went up a bit to give it that small curve. Guys, you won't believe we are done with this Victorian corset. As difficult as it seems, it's also very, very simple. We have our basque, our the dotted part, the shaded part is the sewing allowance extra. Then this middle part is the darts that we took out. Then the upper part is the yoke. I am just cutting it out now for you to see. Cut carefully so you know the darts you're cutting off and the parts that you're keeping. And I also advise you pin down this paper on your fabric as labeled as it is to avoid confusion, because it will come out in different pieces, and if you don't pin it on your fabric, you might make a mistake at the end of the day. So guys, I'm just cutting it out now for you to see. The next thing we'll do, I will not be using this full yoke. I will be using an open chest yoke. So this, as you see on this picture, that's what I will do. I'll bring out, I'll introduce a new paper and fold it into two. As you see me doing, I'll place this front yoke that I cut out from our pattern that we just made. I'll cut out a new yoke and then introduce my tape. Come up on this neckline. On the neckline, come down by 1 inch, as much as you want it. I just want 1 inch as is shown on this picture you're seeing on your screen. And then curve it towards the armhole. Slant it towards the armhole with your curve rule. And then use your scissors and cut it off. So you have this open. If you don't cut this part off, this part of your chest will not be open. So this is what I just did, guys. It is very simple. So guys, before we continue with the back, I would want to say a very big thank you to you for watching to this point. If you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe. Thank you. So now what I'm doing here, I just placed the front on a new paper and I pinned down my front piece to cut out my back. You can actually just start afresh by making a new measurement, back measurement, but this is easier for me. So I just used my marker to mark out the front and remove the pins. That will give me my clean slate to take my back pattern drafting out. So what I did now, I've taken out the yoke part on the armhole line straight. We have our yoke up there. So now what I'm doing is to come in by 3 inches, because this is an eyelet kind of back that you put all those modesty panels. So the opened part of the back is where I am marking 3 inches in. Then after marking 3 inches down, I ruled it straight down with my straight ruler. This is the part that we have the loops. I'm shading it because I'm going to cut it off. That part is going to be open. You can decide to cover it with a modesty panel or not. So now you divide what you have after cutting off this loop part. You divide what you have there by 2 to mark out your back, your side back and middle back. That's what we're doing here. So I divided it by 2, use my straight ruler to rule it out so you see the middle point. The reason I introduced that other front, I just wanted to know where my waistline is, and I marked it down. So on that waistline now, I'm taking a dart, 0.5 on your left, 0.5 on your right, just to give us that snatch at the back as well. So I'm slanting it upwards, slanting it downwards. This is the easiest corset back method you will come across on your timeline today, guys. Trust me. So now we have our middle back and side back. I just decided to write it down so you note it down so you see. So now the next thing we do on this armhole, I'm going to come down go up by 0.5, and on the straight side where it's supposed to be our zipper allowance, but we're not using zip, so we won't call it zipper allowance, I came down by 9 inches. That 9 will determine the depth of my back. You can do yours as deep as you want it to be. So I used 9 because that's how deep I want it, and I slanted it down to that 0.5 I took on my armhole. Guys, we are almost done with this back. So yeah, this is the kind of back that I want to do. On this yoke, I'm working on this yoke now to give me this type of back. But I wouldn't want mine as close to the armpit as it is on this picture. I'm using this picture to give you a guideline of what I want. This laced part with loops is what I shaded on my paper that I'll be cutting off. So I introduced my front yoke to give me my neck line measurements. I just used it to draft out my neck. You know, front neck is deeper than back, so I just came down by 1 inch and went in by 3 inches. So to get the width, that is how wide I want this open part of the yoke at the back to be, I went in by 5 inches and I introduced my curve rule. From the neckline, I curved it to where I want it to reach. This is it, guys. We are done. You will not believe it. So it's very simple. It's very, very simple. It's just for you to watch, understand, and practice, and that's it. You have it. We're cutting off this loop part and the opened part of our yoke that we wouldn't need. That's why I shaded it. And then we also cut off our dart we took for the back, and then cut off the armhole, and then cut off the yoke. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching to this point. In our next video, we'll be placing it on our fabric to cut and post the sewing part of this corset. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.